gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for January 27th, 2023. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, I'm honestly surprised we made it this long without speculating about a Nintendo Direct. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host, Game Mess Mornings. It's Tamoor Hussain, everybody. Tam, how are you doing?
Hey, it's me. I'm back. It's Friday, which means you get me.
Oh, we get our Friday Tam. He's going to send us into the weekend. I am.
Let's go.
Very excited. So before we started, Tam, you were saying that on the internet, you posted a tweet.
Yeah, I
about
posted
Resident
a tweet.
Evil 2.
And in that tweet, I said that Resident Evil 2, the original on PlayStation, is an absolutely flawless game that continues to hold up in the year 2023. And if you are someone who plays video games and you went back to that game, it would be perfect. You would have no issues with it, and it is fantastic. So if you are interested in playing Resident Evil 2, the original for PlayStation, you should, because there are no issues with it.
Okay, I wanted to play a game with you. Here are a handful of games. You tell me, do you think they hold up as far as like the last time you played them, or if you haven't recently, what you imagine how they hold up? Super Mario 64.
Does that hold? Does Super Mario? Yes, I think it holds up.
Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. Be honest.
I know it's the
hard one for
experience.
You because you just said you got to set yourself out of your shoes. Come on, tell me the truth.
No, it does not hold up.
It's why it needs like a remake, right? It's why they need to go back to it.
Part of why it doesn't hold up is it's basically inaccessible.
Yeah, for sure. And when I did go back to it, it's like you need just a little bit of love on these controls. And
I think the fact that I said no should be like a baseline understanding of where I'm at with it. I love that game.
Yes.
And I'm willing to admit, as a fan of that game, doesn't hold up.
I gotta like actually do an assessment of like my favorite games and try to figure out which ones I think actually truthfully don't hold up. We have one today.
I will also offer you one in sacrifice. Metal Gear Solid 1 does not hold up.
Really? Okay. See, that's the one I haven't played in forever. I have such a fondness for that game, but it doesn't hold up. Okay.
Yeah, if anyone knows me, they know I adore Metal Gear Solid 1. I will say that doesn't hold up at all.
Jeff Eckler says, ask him about Eternal Darkness. And then
Twin Snakes probably holds up, but I think Twin Snakes is a inferior game in every single regard.
Which is, it's like, I know exactly what you mean, but that's like a baffling concept. Inferior and yet holds up better.
I do not like Twin Snakes, man.
I don't either.
I do not like it.
Our buddy Dennis Dyack maybe should have worked on that one a little bit harder. Tomb Raider.
Tomb Raider 1? No
Tomb
chance.
Raider 1. Yeah.
No chance.
It does not.
I'm one of those people who will say Tomb Raider barely held up like a few years after its release. Like it was a nightmare to get her to a fucking ledge and jump and catch the other ledge or anything like that.
Yep. That's one that had that really those tank controls that are actually like even worse than most other tank controls.
Yes.
So yeah, that's tough. Okay. Well, thank you for humoring me on that. How are you doing otherwise? How's this Friday going for you? How'd the week go?
I'm doing good. I played a bunch of Dead Space this week. Dead Space is fantastic. And yeah, otherwise it's Friday. You know, I've got a visit to the gym ahead of me, which hopefully will help get my hormones.
Sure, yeah. Let's talk about your hormones
and also my my mind into a clearer place. You know, I
think they're called man hormones. If you know what I mean.
Hormones, yeah. Tamormones?
Yeah, Tamormones. There we go.
I don't know what that means, but here we are, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's going to be a UPF later, which I hit up Jan and I was like, Jan, I'm going to come to that UPF. I'm not going to play the game. I'm just going to sit there and make fun of everyone.
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
I think this is an ideal UPF for you to be an agent of chaos, which is maybe your ideal position in life. So I'm ready for that. That would be very. It's
also for Hitman, which is a game that I have a difficult relationship because I adore it, but it makes me the most toxic player. Because once I start seeing leaderboard numbers, I'm like, I'm gonna ruin your day.
Oh yeah, totally. God, yeah, absolutely. What a good game for that too. What a good game for like everything that it does. I can't wait to play that. We're gonna be doing that for UPF today, Freelancer, some sort of race. We'll decide the rules. We'll let Tam come up with the rules as we're playing. Looking forward to it. All right, let's get into the mess. Before we do, though, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Okay, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Far Cry 7 and a multiplayer Far Cry game are reportedly in the works. This comes from Luis Gutierrez at GameSpot. Ubisoft is reportedly working on 2 Far Cry games. One will be a single-player experience, while the other will be a multiplayer-based game. This is according to an insider, according to Insider Gaming, that claims the unannounced Far Cry game was originally meant to be one game until Dan Hay, the former franchise executive director for Far Cry, left Ubisoft to work at Blizzard. The report goes on to say that the single-player product is now being referred to as Project Blackbird, and the multiplayer Far Cry is being called Project Maverick, with Ubisoft Montreal being heavily involved in both games. Although not much is known, the report suggests that Project Maverick, the multiplayer one, will be set in the Alaskan wilderness and is set to be an extraction-based looter shooter. This does align with a previous poll that Ubisoft did in the past that was originally spotted by PC Gamer, where it asked fans where they'd like the next Far Cry to be based. One of the options was Alaska. Tam, how are you feeling about Far Cry? How are you feeling about them splitting the stuff up? A multiplayer Far Cry, an extraction-based? What do you think?
Jeff.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is?
It might be
insanity
Ubisoft.
Is making a Far Cry multiplayer game the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change.
So the Far Cry single player game, I'm expecting exactly that. This feels like their other form of insanity, where an extraction based multiplayer game. They're trying to follow Tarkov. Everyone's making an extraction based shooter right now. Once again, Ubisoft's whole thing is follow that trend and hope for different results. And I mean, I don't know. I've not spent much time with a Tarkov or a Tarkov like. But I know more and more people are getting to them all the time. I get why this looks appealing. The Far Cry audience seems so mainstream. I don't know if this makes sense for that.
Yeah. Here's the thing with Ubisoft's kind of like approach. They are always chasing the trend. And by that very definition of chasing the trend, they are always behind the trend.
Yes.
Which means they arrive to a market always that has a leader. And usually that means any sort of interesting, risky idea that they have is often forgotten by a group of people who don't want a new thing. They have the one that they've invested in.
Yes.
They have the thing that they've worked for years understanding, playing, getting good at. They don't need a twist on it right now. Very rarely does a game come along. What was their one? Hyperscape? Is that what it was called?
Hyperscape was their battle royale, the one that came and went.
That battle royale came and no one cared because they were like, we've got PUBG, we've got Fortnite. I've already multiple seasons into both of those. I am not abandoning it for one that is kind of weird and I don't know will be around for very long. I respect that they're going for this. I could see a Far Cry extraction shooter working. But the problem they have is they need to weigh up whether, even in the best case scenario, where their game is an absolute banger, is it good enough, or do they think that they can take people away from a habitual relationship with games in that same genre that have existed and have been embedded into their lifestyle for years now? And the question is, probably not.
Yes, because the alternative to that working, which seems very unlikely, what you just laid out there seems very unlikely. So the alternative is we bring a new genre or a new growing genre to the Far Cry fan base and say, you wouldn't try this otherwise, maybe you'll get into it now. That also seems like a long shot. But at a certain point, what other choices do they have? And they're going to keep making Far Cry games. We're getting that single player game here, Project Blackbird. Yeah. And then it probably doesn't hurt.
Those will do okay.
Yes, yeah.
Those will do okay. The single player Far Cry games are sellers. Like, people like that stuff. Even if they are like the same game frequently over and over again,
yeah,
they're different enough that people are into that franchise for the single player, the open world experience in a way that feels like makes sense. Like it makes sense. But it's the rest of it that's like, no, I'm not sure about that one, Chief.
Yeah, and I guess at a certain point though, I'm maybe a little bit encouraged that it is a separate thing. I think that's a good move for big games like this. Don't force the multiplayer mode into your single player mode anymore, or into your single player game. These things probably should live separate lives and get completely different support and like marketing and things like that. So they're going to keep trying stuff with Far Cry multiplayer, with all their stuff. They're going to keep trying different multiplayer concepts. One of them may hit eventually, but it just seems also like if they keep continuing to chase the trends, I don't have a lot of faith that this is going to work out for them.
Ubisoft is in a really interesting and weird position.
Absolutely.
Where like they keep churning out the same franchises, and at the same time it's clear they're aware that they need to do things that are new, but they're not willing to risk it to the degree where the thing that's new is an entirely new IP
really good point.
or something amazing that is out of nowhere. Instead, they take the idea of we need something new and always pass it through a franchise that exists, which automatically kind of takes it down a few notches.
I mean, even when it's not that, it is Watch Dogs, right? Which still feels very familiar as a Ubisoft game.
Yeah, because all of their experiences now line up into a very dated format for an open world game that people have moved beyond a long time ago. The best that they had was like Immortals Phoenix Rising, which was a decent to good game, but like I don't think that thing got like the love and attention it deserved from the Ubisoft side, let alone the player side, and also kind of a Zelda-ish game, and again, another game that went through the Ubisoft tumultuous cycle where it pivoted a bunch of times to chase a trend, which was, in this case, Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild came along. They were like, okay, stop what you're doing to do that thing. Skull and Bones, like that, if that had come out within a reasonable time frame, they could have got away with being like, yeah, this is new. And everyone would have been like, it's technically the Black Flag thing, but we'll let it slide.
Yes.
It's been so long now that game is not out and it feels old.
Yes.
Like, it's bizarre. And it's really weird to see. I'm really interested to see how they approach solving that problem where they need new, fresh ideas and IPs, but they're so beholden to not taking risks because everything new that they do, they try and offset the risk by attaching it to a franchise that already exists. It's really weird.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean when I say like they don't have a choice. They're going to keep making Far Cry games. They're in a situation where they need to be making all of the familiar things that they were making just to maintain. And then when it comes to growth, that's going to have to come from somewhere else. And do they have the capacity, the creative spark to pull that stuff off? That's the big question mark. It seems very, very unlikely.
Yeah, I just hope that Splinter Cell project gets done and it's good, because I don't know, man. That might be what it is that, people have basically forgotten that franchise exists. It's basically new to an entire generation of people.
I mean, I would say that maybe I kind of hope that this Far Cry strategy works out, because this is the strategy that would work really well with Splinter Cell, right? Where put out the single player Splinter Cell game, the remake, let it stand on its own, reestablish Splinter Cell, get people excited about it, but then maybe also have that standalone Splinter Cell Mercs versus Spies multiplayer thing. Honestly, the fact that they haven't done that yet is kind of bizarre.
It's wild that Spies versus Mercs didn't get another shot.
And so hopefully they see this work and they do try it, because I mean that would be, I could totally see that being something that takes off in today's gaming space, where multiplayer gaming is more popular than ever. More people play multiplayer games than ever before, and they are very popular to stream on Twitch. It seems like it would Spies versus Mercs could create a lot of really interesting things that would get people talking, but it would have to be this standalone thing that gets its own support and isn't hidden inside of the Splinter Cell remake. So we'll see.
Yeah. I'm excited for 1 million Assassin's Creed games. Let's go.
Yes. Well, listen, good news. Speculation grows for a Direct as Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Advance Wars 1+2 eShop IDs get updated. I'll explain what that means. This is from My
Shop
Nintendo.
IDs, let's fucking go.
That's right. Here we go, baby. Let's fucking go. We are nearing that time of the year for a new Nintendo Direct presentation to inform us of Nintendo's upcoming release schedule for 2023 with all important release date updates for certain games. Speculation for one to arrive soonish has amplified today as it was discovered that some software IDs on the Canadian Nintendo Switch eShop have been updated. This includes Advanced Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp and the long-awaited The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So for me, this feels like one of those situations where these things do are maybe not related. A Direct is coming and these things got ID updates, but it probably is still technically true because we've had a Nintendo Direct in February for many of the last few years. So there probably is one coming soon, right?
But I love that now this is added to, there's that episode of, is it Malcolm in the Middle, where Bryan Cranston's character is like bowling and he gets like a really good streak going, but each time he bowls, he's doing something weird. And by the end of it, he's got this entire routine of touch your nose to this is what's going to happen now. This eShop IDs has now been added to the routine to check whether a fucking Nintendo Direct is coming. So now people are checking 1 million different Twitter users, looking at eShop IDs, checking reset error, I don't know, burning some effigies to Miyamoto, and then by the end of it, it's like, yes.
It does feel like we are consulting a Nintendo Direct shamans who live in the woods and keep all this information in their heads. So it's like, oh, I've checked with the sages and it looks like the IDs have been updated, and the crowd goes, oh. But okay, maybe this is related. I have no idea. I will say, the rumor going around is that there is one for early February, which just isn't surprising at all, because they have one in February most years. They're probably going to have another one. They have a lot of games to talk about. They do have stuff like Advance Wars that they probably would want to update us on. Advance Wars obviously was very, very finished. It was coming out, had a release date. The war, Russia invading Ukraine happened, and Nintendo's like, maybe we don't want a game where your main thing is you invade places and take over their cities. But GoldenEye, I think, was also caught up in that a little bit, because GoldenEye has a lot of Russian military imagery in it, and that game seemed like it was supposed to come out to the Nintendo Switch Online store much earlier than what it actually ended up coming out. And so it's like, if that's out, maybe Nintendo is feeling a little bit more okay with going ahead with games like that. So it's possible that we will get this Direct, and it will have information about Advance Wars. Now, if it does, how do you think they handle it? Because I'm thinking probably just a shadow drop, so they don't have to do a big marketing campaign.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Shadow drop. These days, I think more and more companies are just like, let's just drop this thing, man. There's no point.
Yep.
In doing these massive prolonged marketing campaigns for some things. It makes sense to shadow drop.
Yeah, and that way they can yes, we are releasing a game that features military imagery, and I don't think many people actually care all that much, but Nintendo believes there's a possibility that some people do care, and so they can be like, we aren't spending a bunch of money advertising and glorifying it, we're just putting the game out and calling it a day and stepping away from it.
And also, it's Advance Wars, it's cartoon people just doing cartoony shit, and I think it'll be fine.
Yep.
But Nintendo, it plays it safe as they can every single time.
Exactly.
So it makes sense for them to be like, yeah, let's not show a lot of footage of tanks shooting, even if there are little tile tanks that are launching shit from afar.
What else do you think could be in a Nintendo Direct? Because I guess we know about Pikmin 4. That doesn't have a date, but it is supposed to come out, I think, summerish, is I think what they said, but at least this year at the very least. We know that Tears of the Kingdom's coming May 2nd. Is this a big Direct about Tears of the Kingdom?
If I had to guess what the next Nintendo Direct would be about, I would guess it would be way more focused. I don't think you drop Tears of a Kingdom kind of in the middle of a bunch of stuff. It's really interesting, because we don't know whether if the idea is Nintendo wants to give the game a whole lot of time and kind of show off a bunch of features, then you do that on your own, right? You don't put that anywhere else. And Nintendo rarely does that. Like, it never spends like, here's a half an hour or 20-minute show entirely about one game. It hasn't happened that many times in the past.
Not recently, also, yeah.
No, not recently, yeah. But if they just want to do the thing where it's like, we got to get these nerds to stop. Like, let's just drop in a minute-long, just a, hey, it's Aonuma-san. He's like, hello, it's me. You know me from the Zelda. Zelda is happening. Here is a picture of Link's ass. Isn't it great? We put new polygons in his ass. You may notice that his pajamas have new textures on them. That is called ass textures. A new technology that we have come up with, and then for Tears of the Kingdom.
And the next direct is them apologizing for offending people of Aztec lineage. Like, we didn't mean it that way. We're so sorry.
Deep L.
Yeah, deep L here. I think you pretty much nailed it. I agree. I think that if they have Zelda stuff in here, it will be tiny little details, and then they will say we are going to talk about this a lot more elsewhere. Probably like a lot of tweets, probably a Nintendo Treehouse Live sort of presentation, but we'll see.
You may have noticed that in this Legend of Zelda, the sequel to Breath of the Wild, Link has a huge ass. This is because there is continuity between the two games. In the previous game, Link was forced to climb many mountains. This is called back work. This is called leg work. And in the process of climbing these mountains, Link has refined his ass. He is now chiseled, and he's got a huge dumper. Please be excited. We have connected the two games, and we look forward to adding Link Ass Revolution to Zelda Historia.
Link Ass Revolution is definitely my favorite Konami spinoff. Absolutely. Yeah, man, he should have a dumper. You're right. That's how
he like the amount that dude is like crouching, going up, climbing things. Link should physically just be like Liver King by now. Like, he needs to be bulbous and like built like a brick. He needs to be dense. Like, how is Link not brolic? Make Link brolic. You're setting unrealistic body expectations by implying you can do that much work, cardio and body weight, and not grow. You are lying, Nintendo.
That's what a BBL is. It's a big butt Link. That's what it's always meant.
BBL stands for big butt Link.
That's right.
That's why Ganon's on his case so much. He's like, damn, bro.
He's jealous.
He's like, how you get so thick?
Yeah, I got to stop you before you get as thick as I am.
Get my size.
Yes, exactly. Or else it'll be too late, and I'll be done so. And you'll take all my followers on TikTok.
Yeah.
All right. GoldenEye controls better on Xbox than on Switch. This comes from Ollie Welsh at Polygon. The long-awaited reissue of Rare's classic 1997 James Bond shooter GoldenEye 007 is available on Nintendo Switch and Xbox consoles today, and you might want to carefully consider which version you play. As announced earlier this week, only GoldenEye on Switch has online multiplayer, but it turns out the Xbox version of the game also has an exclusive feature which might have a bigger impact on your enjoyment. And that is modern first-person shooter controls. Nintendo has taken a purist approach that's one way of putting it. A purist approach with the Switch version of GoldenEye. The game doesn't support any inputs which didn't exist on the original Nintendo 64 controller, which means no right trigger to fire from. The various control options available in the game, all carried over from the original, with their Bond-inspired names like Honey, Solitaire, Goodnight, only allow fire to be assigned to the left trigger or the A button. The N64 controller also only had a single analog stick. Nintendo does map the 4 yellow C buttons, which formed a kind of secondary D-pad, onto the Switch's right stick, but none of the available control maps correspond to the modern standard for a twin-stick first-person shooter control system. This is in stark contrast to Xbox, where they did just put Xbox controls straight up into the game, and you could play it like a modern, sane person. Sam, I downloaded this last night, and I was playing on my Switch, and boy, I struggled. Those controls are completely insane to me now.
I love the idea of a generation. You know what? You know when you copy your friend's homework and they're like, change it a bit. Just be like, no, I'm taking the purist approach.
Yeah, purist approach.
Nintendo style. Just copy it word for word and be like, it doesn't work, man.
Yeah, you really gonna sleep until noon today? I'm taking a purist approach to today.
All right. I am being pure and replicating my weekend to the finest details on this Monday morning. It's a bizarre thing, but I'm not entirely surprised by it.
Yes.
I don't know, man. I love Nintendo, but also they just do the wildest shit constantly.
It's just so, you're right. It's not surprising at all. Of course Nintendo did this. Of course they probably know it's busted, but like the people will love this, or they don't, or maybe they don't even think about it that far. They're like, just put the ROM out there. Apparently, this ROM that they did actually use is a version of the ROM that no one's seen before. It's not available anywhere online, so it's some weird version of the game anyhow. But they did not do any work to actually get it to feel good to play if you have played any sort of Halo of Call of Duty in the intervening 25 years. Now you can customize controls on your Switch on a system level. This doesn't exist in the game or even in the sort of ROM manager thing that is the N64 Nintendo Switch Online, to get it to sort of work how you want. But even in that case, if you begin to like aim down sights, the reticle is still going to move around the screen in that freeform way, which feels really weird still. And on Xbox, they just lock it to the center of the screen. So it's like they've done even extra work on top of like just adding controller support to ensure that when you do use an Xbox 360 or Xbox controller, it actually does just feel right.
It's just such a bad look, is what I'm thinking.
Absolutely.
Like, it's such a bad look. Like, you have this game that is like iconic and synonymous with your platform, Nintendo. Like, before seeing the GoldenEye logo, everyone saw the Nintendo logo. That was through and through a Nintendo game. It should be like a pride and joy for you, even if Rare has now moved on to being Microsoft. It should be slightly embarrassing that a competitor is putting more love, care, and attention into bringing back a game that your platform is known for more than you are. Like, come on, man. If it just doesn't make sense. If I bet you, like, at this point, Nintendo is just like, fucking, I don't give a shit about stuff, man. Like, if it's not first party, whatever. I don't give a shit. Just get it out there. And it's so weird.
And of course, like, they did have to have the original controls in there. Like, they sell an N64 controller. And if I had that N64 controller and I was going to play it that way, I would want it to work the way it was supposed to. But just give me options on top of that.
I would love to know how much input and how much work Rare did on this, because obviously Rare could step in. It feels like Rare came in and went, this is our baby, like, and we're in a position to make this good for the platform that we are a subsidiary of. I wonder if it was simply a case of like Rare came in and did a bunch of work on it because it's their game. And on the Nintendo side, Rare didn't have any involvement in that, and Nintendo were like, fuck it, we don't care. Like,
I think that's exactly right. I mean, and of course we talked about this on yesterday's episode or whatever. The lineage here of this is something that was supposed to happen a long time ago. We have that leaked version of the complete sort of HD up-res remake version that Rare did forever ago that was supposed to come to Xbox, and Nintendo stepped in at the last minute with that and stopped that from happening. So it's like this time around, like they didn't get to put that version out. They had to do something completely different, and yet Rare still came in there, likely Rare, came in and did some work to make sure that this version of the game, which is basically just a ROM, is still like a hacked ROM that is upgraded in a lot of key ways. And you're right, it just makes Nintendo look like aloof, like they always look.
Yeah, you know what you can do? Go to Google, type in GoldenEye Source, because there is a banging for a remake, fan-made remake of GoldenEye called GoldenEye Source that I remember playing a while back and thinking, this is great. This is a good time. I think they've like finished it, but it's like they remade the soundtrack as well, and it's great.
I loved GoldenEye Source. I had a lot of good nights playing that several years ago at this point. You're right, it is a total banger.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on here. Like a Dragon Ishin confirms Kenny Omega and Rahul Kohli will appear in the game. This comes from Alex Hopley at Game Reactor. Like a Dragon Ishin has just got 2 new trailers, each showing off a celebrity cameo in the game in the form of attack cards that contain their likenesses. For Omega, the pro wrestler has an area of effect sweep attack that links one of his wrestling moves. Kohli, on the other hand, just unleashes a fiery fury and a huge ball of flame that knocks down and deals heavy damage to all foes in front of the player. In separate trailers, the actor and wrestler star both spoke about how they're fans of Yakuza or Like a Dragon series, with each explaining their own connections to it and why you should be using their attacks. This is one of the cool things that Yakuza has always done. It usually has like pretty big wrestlers from Japan in there. I'm glad that they are sort of expanding a little bit. I don't think they're like, I think they still do that. They still have Japanese New Japan Pro Wrestling wrestlers in there, but it's cool to see like Kenny Omega, a big New Japan Wrestling star, and then Rahul Kohli, just a cool actor who likes the game, getting to be in there as well.
Yeah, he's super into the franchise. I don't really know Kenny Omega, but I do know Raul. Like Raul is I think I would say he's a friend of mine. And he loves his franchise. He's over the moon to be involved in it. We actually interviewed him about it, and as part of the GameSpot After Dark podcast, which you can check out. And I asked him about like, because he was recently on a project, I think it's the House of Fall of Usher with Mark Hamill, and he remembers he was talking to Mark Hamill about being the original voice actor for Goro Majima, and obviously it's out there now, but like Hamill has no idea that he was Majima.
I love that.
And he's like, I don't know, man.
I don't know what this is.
Shit.
Yep.
It's crazy. But yeah, I also like I was talking to Rahul about whether
my bad.
Whether if he had to play, I gave him a hypothetical where I was like, okay, so there's a live action Yakuza series or movie that's made. You're offered a part in it, okay? However, they will only give you one role, and it's Mr. Libido. Do you take it? Mr. Libido is this. Have you played Mr.? Do you know who Mr. Libido is?
I've seen.
So he's this,
yes.
He's the dancing naked guy.
Yeah, the dancing naked guy.
Yes. If you want to find out whether he did it, you can listen to the GameSpot After Dark podcast.
Incredible. As far as Kenny Omega goes, you don't have to know him. Don't worry, he's asleep in the back of the set right now. So that's where he's always at. I'm showing some of these off here for the video version. It looks pretty cool, but yeah, obviously it's a big part is just having these big names on here talking about the game. Also, I can't look at Rahul without wanting to watch Midnight Mass again. I see him and I'm like, man, that shit was so goddamn good.
I think the wildest thing about this is they're not characters; they're just themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like Kenny Omega is in the Yakuza universe or the like a dragon.
Yeah, he's activated by this like special card too, so it does feel like you're calling him from like the real world into the game in a way. It's pretty neat.
And even Raul was like, it's wild that I'm not playing a character, I'm just in there, it's me. So that's great.
All right, so let's move on. PlayStation boss Jim Ryan reportedly met EU antitrust chief this week about Microsoft Activision deal. This comes from Tom Ivan at VGC. Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan reportedly met EU antitrust boss Margaret Vestager on Wednesday to discuss Microsoft's proposed acquisition. I absolutely totally has a orbital space laser above us right now. They met, in the discussion between PlayStation boss and Vestager was of course about the $69 billion acquisition between Microsoft and Activision Blizzard. But it was also what would be the games that would be the game industry's biggest ever deal by far. And what would be the latest setback in the road to completing the deal? The EU is this week expected to issue Microsoft with a charge sheet setting out its concerns about the acquisition, Reuters reports. Now, that's been reported for quite some time, so it's like Jim Ryan's just going in there at the last minute to be like, give him a couple extra charges on top of all that. Like, I mean, this is important. This is like one of the main things he's been working on is stopping this deal. And I mean, credit where credit's due. I think he's really succeeded at giving the best possible chance to stop this deal.
Yeah, this man, he's elusive manning this shit.
Yes.
He's like, he's sitting there just staring at an entire fucking sun dying in front of him and figuring out ways that he can just like pull some strings in the background to give them the best chance of knocking this down, which is like, fair play, man. That's what, if that's your kind of your role to protect your business. Like I can't really say otherwise. This is a key kind of concern for him, and you can't
let someone take Call of Duty away from you. You need to try to stop that. Like otherwise, it's like dereliction of duty almost. Like he's got to.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got to.
And like Microsoft has been very open about, hey, we'll have it for this many years, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, the various people who have a stake in Sony's businesses will ask, regardless. It doesn't matter how long they're saying they're willing to work with us. At some point, there might be a situation where Call of Duty is no longer available to us, or other
Yeah.
Microsoft, or other titles that in the Activision Blizzard umbrella will no longer be available to us. And in the off chance that they are important to our business 10, 15 years down the line, we need to be in a position where we guarantee that they're not gone. And if they are, like, at least back when we get to that point, we can look back and say we did our best, we did our due diligence.
Yeah. I mean, even when I said like they can't let Microsoft take Call of Duty away from them, like you're right. Like, this is like a long timeline before that.
Oh, yeah.
This exact scenario is a problem. But even in the immediate term, Microsoft owning Call of Duty just changes every conversation that Microsoft and Sony has going forward. It gives Microsoft such a huge bargaining chip that suddenly Sony really has to begin maybe saying yes to some things they never would have said yes to. It makes things like Game Pass on a PlayStation more likely, even if it's even if that probably still won't happen. It just puts Sony in such a tough position, like where they have to be more willing, more open at the bargaining table, and that's something that's a position they don't want to be in. All that said, Microsoft still thinks it's going to go through in July. We'll see. The thing with the EU's charges that they're going to drop for this thing is they say that they might also still be open to concessions, but not until they drop these charges first. So it's like they're going to do this, and then they'll talk to Microsoft. We'll see how that goes down. In the meantime, though, again, Jim Ryan, getting the minivan, driving over to Europe and saying, "Hey, what's happening?" So he's doing his job.
He's doing it.
New report claims Valve's structure and work culture is hostile to diversity. This comes from Grace Benfell at GameSpot. A new report alleges Valve leadership blocked internal diversity efforts and halted the company from making a statement on Black Lives Matter. Interviews with the current and former employees elaborate on Valve's famously unconventional structure and how that structure can prevent diverse hires and outright political stances. YouTube channel People Make Games, which is fantastic, everyone should watch their stuff, interviewed 16 current and former employees of Valve, trying to get to the bottom of the gaming giant's opaque worker culture and decision making. The video then explores Valve's worker culture and its effects on the diversity of the company. On paper, Valve has a structureless system without literal bosses or managers, and one in which employees can make their own decisions. Valve also uses its own stack ranking system by which employees evaluate each other's performance and, in an undisclosed way, shape the year's salary and bonus for each employee. Multiple interviewees claimed the company has a lack of diversity, even by the standards of the often homogenous games industry. One former worker claimed that more contractors and lower-level employees were women and/or people of color. She said, "While I was there was never more than one female programmer at the company, while more women work in HR and finance, but also are locked into a more defined role, so cannot experience that workplace freedom that Valve touts." Tam, there's more to this report. Again, I recommend people go watch this video. This is not too surprising, right? Because I think one thing we know about diversity and I think the concept of fairness in general is it does not happen on its own. It is not the kind of thing that you can, we'll create a system and then we'll let the system run, and without any input from us, fairness will take place. Like, fairness will just happen. That requires active input from someone that has a vision for that stuff.
To create a fair and inclusive and more diverse, or even simply a case of a more charitable workplace to your employees, fundamentally, you need to admit that the core setup, almost in every scenario, is flawed. And most corporations, companies will not do that of their own volition. Nobody comes into it and goes, the way companies have been structured, regardless of if it's a standard structure or one of these ones where everyone's their own boss and everyone is each other's boss.
Yeah.
Like, no one's going to start admit as a starting point that this sucks and this is a problem, and let's figure out where these problems are and then proactively address them. The way that happens is it's outside pressures and people from within pointing these things out. And in most cases, in most businesses, they're so rigidly established, and the people in charge are so have specific kind of like reliances on it being a certain way, that chances are you're going to get pushback to changing any of that stuff. So this is not surprising at all. But this is also the kind of thing that this is how it changes. Like, name one company that has proactively been like, this sucks. We looked around and we realized that we have very little diversity, and we don't have very many women in our workplace in positions outside of HR. So we're gonna change it.
Yeah,
It's always someone goes, "Hello, it sucks in here. Can we get some help?"
And when it's not that, it is something happened to the company like right next door, and they're like, "Oh shit, if that's going to happen to us, we got to head this off at the pass." So it's still the same thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem I always think about is like the Rolodex problem. Someone wrote about this a long time ago, and I can't remember who, so apologies. But the Rolodex problem is like, if you just go to call the people that you know already, like how usually how do you come to know the people that you know? It is they are from the same groups as you. They come from family connections, things that where a lot of times those people are going to end up being people that look like you and have the same belief systems as you, things like that, because that's just how networking works. So what do you have to do to go beyond your own existing Rolodex? You have to make an active decision to expand beyond that and reach out to people from walks of life that are not common to your own. And if you're not doing that, you are almost assuredly reinforcing through subconscious biases the structure that created that homogenous Rolodex in the first place. And so it's just, again, not surprising at all that that's what's happening at Valve.
Yeah, companies like Valve are especially tricky because they are more secretive and private than most other companies. Like, we don't get a lot of people on Twitter that are like, I work at Valve. It's like very few people are like, I couldn't tell you multiple people. I can tell you like a bunch of people that have, over the years, that I know have worked at Ubisoft or Take-Two, Activision, whatever it may be. But I just don't know. We just don't know who's at there, and it's very and they're not encouraged to be present and available, so that it's harder to identify these issues from the outside. And I think that's more of that transparency, the lack of transparency is another major issue. Like, if you, in this day and age anyway, it's like you go into Valve and then you basically stop existing anywhere else.
Yeah, I think the one time where I started hearing from Valve employees was when the Steam Deck was launching, and everyone who was excited about that project and went to go work on that project couldn't help themselves. They wanted to talk about it so much, but that was it. It's like, oh, okay, you're excited about that. I could tell, and
rightly so. That thing is an incredible thing. But
absolutely, I get it. Like, I totally got it at that. But it's barring that. Usually, you're right. Then people go into Valve, and then we stop hearing about them, and their work sort of gets swallowed up. I mean, Brad Muir, the Idle Thumbs guys that worked on Firewatch. Their game's probably never coming out, even though I hold hope in my heart that eventually it will. In the Valley of the Gods, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
But most of these things get swallowed up, and it's like if big gaming products are getting swallowed up, what is happening to efforts to diversify? Same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably more immediately. And that's definitely the story here. Like what was happening with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's like people at the company wanted to make a statement. People at the top who are technically not the boss squashed that, and instead what happened is the company said, well, here's $10,000. You can give this to any cause that you so choose. And it's like, man, it just really got washed until this was a pretty meaningless thing.
Yeah, and that's why stuff like people saying, here's how it is in here is important, because they're not going to give us insight into how things are in the culture of their own volition,
Yep. And stack ranking systems where other people are saying, here's what you're worth to the company, and we all work with you. Well, what does that encourage? It encourages you to do the things that you imagine everyone else values. And if everyone else is, and again, this is the way it works in the tech industry widely, a white guy, you as a person who might be a diverse hire, probably you have to make your values the values of the other white men that are assessing you. It's like, ooh, that's not a great system for building a workplace that can grow in terms of diversity and inclusion. And so it's like something, again, that has to be actively addressed.
I hope that the people at Valve who are in a position to instigate a change see this and do that.
Agreed.
for whatever reason. Like I've heard, like Valve is also, it's, I mean, like it's got its fair share of issues, but also it can be a good place to work. Like there's people who will listen, and my hope is, as with any company that is like facing these challenges, that they learn from it and quickly create a more diverse and more welcoming work environment for people. So that would be great, because that only improves the games and the products.
So many bits of the Twitch chat says, I was on a message board for years with the guy who led up the Artifact project. And then the next chat was, he was not fielding questions about Artifact. I'm just like, yeah, I bet not. I bet not. Okay, a couple more stories here. Fantastic delays the day before, again, after trademark dispute. Speaks up against scam claims. That we talked about this earlier this week, about this game getting delayed because of the trademark dispute. But even at the time, we're like, there's definitely more going on here. Well, now they've basically said, yeah, there is more going on here. This is from Marie Delisandre at gamesindustry.biz. The day before, developer Fantastic was struck by a trademark claim over the name of the game, leading it to being delisted on Steam. In an announcement shared on Wednesday, the studio claimed that an individual registered the game trademark in the U.S. soon after the announcement of the day before in 2021 and got in touch with them on January 19th, 2023 with a formal complaint. As a result of the situation, Fantastic announced that it was delaying the game's launch to November 10th, as well as the release of its first gameplay trailer. The day before was initially due to release on March 1st and had already been previously pushed back. Now, a controversy has grown among the community on Twitter, Reddit, and Discord, accusing Fantastic of being misleading. Players claim that the timing of the trademark dispute is suspicious and that the studio is covering up the lack of progress in the game's development. Reacting to the players' claims in a statement to IGN, Fantastic co-founders Edward and Ison Gotostov have said that the delay was actually already planned before the trademark claim. We plan to move the game's release before and plan to announce it with publisher Mytona in a 10-minute gameplay video. And then you all know what happened. So to be on the safe side, to ensure that there are no more transfers, we, along with the publisher, chose November 10th. That is a safe date given the trademark dispute. They added that they were confident in the issue being resolved and that the extra time will allow them to make overall improvements to the title, more specifically addressing the claims that the game isn't actually in active development. They said that the storm will calm down eventually and time will put everything in its place. And boy,
did we know that it is no longer on Steam?
Yes, that happened right around the trademark thing initially. Okay. Delisted from Steam.
Yeah, and if you go to their website, it's just the only thing on there is a picture of the character and add to wish list, which if you click just takes you to nowhere.
Well, so but Tam, when the game comes out, people will finally see the truth they added. And really, if you voice concerns and someone says the storm will calm down eventually and time will put everything in its place, I don't see how you can continue to criticize them. You have to just believe them.
Yeah, I have to take their word because they have proven themselves to be truthful.
This is straight up abandoned shit, right? This sounds exactly like maybe Kojima's making this game too. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh God, please don't do this.
I have to do it. Here we are.
Leave my man out of this, man. But yeah, I love that. I just want these. But they're both hilarious to me, and like, how do these fucking weird ass projects keep getting this much attention?
Yes, because this is like, people might be wondering why are you giving this attention. This was the most wishlisted game on Steam. Like, people
it was
want
like
to believe.
Wild, but like, what is happening to people that they can see these things that are obviously just some sort of grift and be like, yes, I want this. Whereas like, come on, man. Like, I'm not being rude, but
no, I
saw this thing and I was like, oh, this seems well weird. I'm just gonna ignore this.
I mean, not to blow smoke up your ass, but I mean, I think you're savvy, and I think that the games industry is so mysterious and sort of this black box to so many people of like, how do these things work? How do these things happen? That you see something like this and you just have to assume, well, this is from some big publisher and developer I've never heard of before. I just think this looks like a cool idea. And like,
yeah,
the things that they have shown do look promising, but they're a lie, I think.
Yeah, but the people that freak me out are like the people that really are like ride or die,
true believers,
which I have seen a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Where it's like, what are you fighting for right now? Like, just there's no shame in being like, I'm just gonna cut my losses here and go my separate ways until it appears. But like, the amount of people I see on Twitter that are like, no, this game will come out and it's going to be the best game of all time.
And you will be ashamed of your words and deeds. Like they are like, what are you doing, man? Really walking and living that life. That happens with I mean, Stadia had those people. Abandon definitely had those people. I dealt with them pretty frequently on Twitter, where they're just like they were just positive that thing was real. Months and months after it was obvious that it was such a scam and it was never real. But no, I still believe, and I still even think Kojima's making it. I'm just, you can't be serious, and they were. You're right. I don't know what we do about these truthers, but it feels like mostly you have to just ignore them because there's no helping them. People will. I think these kinds of things might continue happening because there's money in them hills, and I think we can look to. I mean, obviously I know this is not exactly the same, but Star Citizen has made a lot of money from crowdfunding.
Yeah,
and there is like a client in there, and you can boot it up, and there's things you can do. Still, though, it is in this vein, and I just and people are going to see that money and be like, "What can we do to like maybe get there?" Maybe they believe they'll make a game, but in reality, they never will.
Yeah, I just don't know how stuff like that continues to exist. With like, I'm surprised there's not more outrage around Star Citizen. Like, what is happening?
Yep.
If I had given my money to that when I was a literal child, and I've gone through multiple stages of life while that thing is in development, at a certain point I'm like, what's going on? Give me my money back.
Airy Buster and Chet says Star Citizen just updated with server meshing. Server meshing. Let's fucking go.
Just making shit up and just being like next time they're gonna be like, we've added Link's thick ass technology to our game because we heard it's going to be in.
They got Aztecs technology. I thought that was trademark Nintendo.
Aztecs. No.
We need to ask Mark Hamill if he remembers working on that stuff, that Star Citizen movie thing that he was doing.
I bet you Mark Hamill was like, "Here's a picture of my face. Go well."
Yeah. Here's a JPEG. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I'll thank you for the $4 million.
Yeah, thanks for the check. Okay, finally, let's do this one pretty quick. Early game mess update for the year. What to expect from E3. It sounds unlikely, and I'm not for sure on any of this stuff because I think it's still in flux a little bit. But right now, it sounds pretty unlikely that the big three platform holders will be at the summer showcase that is labeled as E3. They will have their own, like Microsoft has said, we're going to have a thing in the summer, like we always have. And it's possible that Sony and Nintendo could do exactly the same thing. But right now, it sounds like for some reason, under Repop's E3, they probably aren't going to like go and actually partner with E3 and be at the physical E3. That doesn't mean that like E3 is going to be some like complete disappointment, though. But it'll probably be more in line with like a Tokyo Game Show, maybe a Gamescom in terms of who's going to be there. If you're looking for those platform holders, they're probably going to be doing something else. I don't know if that means Jeff Keighley. I have no idea at that point.
We exist in a world now where platform holders have seen what it's like to be in complete control of their own message and not have to pay an outside company or be part of a production that isn't completely in their hands, and they're not going back to it. You gave them freedom. You went away for long enough and they saw the open door, they ran outside, they smelled the grass, they gallivanted in the meadows, and now they're like, we're not going back in. Like, we're done. Even though some of them do have a stake in E3. Like, I know Phil Spencer's on the board, right? An ESA board and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, ESA's not running this, right? This is run by Repop.
This is a different thing now, but like, I think we're at a stage now where something like E3 and most events are going to be held up by communities and also by third parties. I think that it still could be a pretty big deal because it is third parties. Third parties includes the likes of, Final Fantasy from Square Enix, Capcom Street Fighter 6, or whatever it may be. There's plenty of games that can show up there and be big draws. It just means that push come to shove, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo are probably going to be like, nah, we're good. We got our own situation going on. Maybe we'll chuck in, throw you a bone and have one of our games there. But as far as it comes to like having a centralized event, we will put it on ourselves and reap all the rewards ourselves and not have to pay anyone else but ourselves and our production partners.
Yeah, that makes
too much sense, man.
Exactly what has happened here, it feels like. And that toothpaste is not going to go back in the tube, it doesn't seem like. But, no. Really, the other hope there is just don't spread it out. If you are going to do your own thing, do it in that time frame. So if we all go out to LA and you're doing your thing in LA, it makes sense for everybody just to come at the same time. And let's just I know people don't want to have their toes stepped on. Like, we want to have our thing be the message all that day. I promise them that if they do it all at the same time, it actually brings more eyeballs and more excitement because it's all like feeding into one another. That's how it works. So just come be there at the same time. Let's actually do something that feels like real E3, even if it's not.
I think there's a very real sense of fatigue that can come from like protracted and prolonged events that are spread off across a month, which is like just people are just like they start giving up on like the interest around things. And also like you have, when it's centralized and focused, you have people who will, like you said, they vibe off the energy around it. Once you start, like, you do a big event and then a bunch of small things happen, people are just like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna check out. And especially the big consideration for them is if you want people to watch your event, the thing that you're putting on your stream, your VODs, you do it centralized, because people check out and then they'll be like, I will watch it whenever on some YouTuber's recap, or great for us, I'll watch the GameSpot videos or whatever it may be. So it's kind of like a balance there.
Let's get to the poll question from yesterday. I asked, do you want Naughty Dog to make a new Uncharted? I'm like, I don't have my finger on the pulse of this one. I was like, yeah, I think most people do. No, most people do not. 69.5% say no. 30.5% say yes. I think people are just ready for Naughty Dog to move on from Uncharted. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I would be, if they never put out an Uncharted game again, I'd be fine with that. Like, they've done a good job with that franchise. I will say nice, 69%, well done. I wouldn't, if they come back, I wouldn't mind some sort of like alternate take on it. Like, here is a, I don't know, a fucking tactics game in the Uncharted universe. I'd love to see Nathan Drake move one tile and then go, whoa, 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 whoa.
I love it. That's what you want to see. I got a new poll question. In the meantime, though, while I get that set up, Sam, why don't you tell people what's going on with you? What's going on with Giant Bomb? I know we had a UPF happening later today. What's happening? Yeah,
so we are going to be doing a UPF. So after this, actually, Jeff, myself, Lucy, and Super High Patrol will be recording soon another episode of Jeff Jeff's Bizarre Adventure, which you can check out on the site if you love anime and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Grubb and I are actually recording, can we say?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do a quick look for Hi-Fi Rush. Lucy and I did Forspoken yesterday, so that will pop up soon, hopefully. And then UPF Hitman Race from 1 p.m. PT. That'll be back. No, it's you and Jan playing?
It's me and Jan, yes, that's right.
You and Jan playing, but Lucy should be there as well, and I'll be there just being the peanut gallery and having some fun. It's going to be a good time. So please come hang out. We're very excited to hang out with everyone on the UPF. I keep wanting to come on UPFs, and there's always something that comes along that's like, we need you to do this desperately. So I keep missing them. So I'm very excited to actually be on UPF this week. Yeah. So that's everything going on as far as I know. There's probably some stuff. Sekiro is now not live, is it?
I think sometimes it will be, sometimes it will be. I think it's sometimes it's as Jan calls it.
Jan's
I think.
call. Yeah, Jan, if you're around there, can you feel
Dealer's choice
calling out to you? Dealer's choice. Let us know if Sekiro is happening, and we'll go from there. Yeah.
Let's see. The new poll: are you still interested in E3 if Xbox, Nintendo, and Sony don't have a physical presence at the show? You know, it definitely feels like it's trending that way after that Microsoft message, but we'll see. These things could change, but let's just say that does end up being the case. Are you still interested in E3 if Xbox, Nintendo, and Sony aren't really a part of it? Okay.
Wait, Jan says none today. Let's Hi-Fi Rush. Jan,
okay.
Do you want to do the quick look for Hi-Fi Rush? Yeah, I'm happy to let you do it.
Yeah, if you want a thing to do, so you got another recording. We'll figure it out. In the meantime, though, Sam, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games.
You know what? I love it. This is, as you say, the best audience in gaming. They put up with my goofs and gaffs, and they also are very kind to me, and I love everyone. And I love coming in on a Friday when the news is a bit dry, but we can have some fun with it. And my cat just jumped on my lap. And,
good kitty.
Pulled my headphones.
Bad
out my
kitty.
ears.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Like Tam said, you are the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.